Muhammad Yunus is in deep trouble, viewers. He's on the verge of being arrested or ousted as protests rage in Dhaka. And the army considers a coup. Yunus, who helped topple Sheikh Hasina's government last year, is now paying the price for his role in that messy power grab. His actions have not only destabilized Bangladesh but have also put India in a tight spot. Yunus was no innocent bystander, viewers, when Hasina was forced out. Muhammad Yunus quietly backed the movement to oust Hasina, eyeing a chance to seize control, and he did. Now, as chief advisor, as he likes to call himself, he's struggling to keep the country together. The streets are burning with protests, and economy is tanking. Hindus are under attack. Over 2,000 violent incidents have been reported since Hasina's fall. The army, led by General Waqar-uz-Zaman, is fed up and reportedly planning to remove Yunus, possibly through a coup or emergency rule. We don't know. Viewers, Yunus's big mistake was turning on India, Hasina's close ally. He's been bad-mouthing New Delhi for sheltering Hasina and even demanded her extradition. Worse, Yunus is closing up to China, Beijing, visiting Beijing and hinting at using Bangladesh to pressure India's northeast. These moves have made India wary, especially since Hasina kept the border peaceful and worked well with New Delhi. Yunus's reckless talk, like backing anti-India rhetoric, has only made things worse. Because India needs a stable Bangladesh to keep China in check and its borders safe. Yunus's plot against Hasina has backfired, and his arrest could make things even messier. He's created a crisis that's not just his own downfall. It could be, viewers, a headache for India, which now faces a risky, unstable neighbor on Eastern Front. Let's open this up. Dr. Brahma Chalani, RSN Singh, Sushant Sareen stays on, Harshvardhan Ji, and Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhary, editor of The Blitz, is a journalist from Bangladesh now joining us. Dr. Brahma Chalani, first question to you, sir. What's happening in Bangladesh? What is your reading?
There is great turbulence in Bangladesh. The special assistant to Muhammad Yunus, Faiz Ahmed Taib, he deleted a Facebook post. He first claimed that Yunus will not resign, and then he deleted that post, saying that was his personal opinion and asking the media not to report on his previous post. Now, that really tells you a lot. It tells you that things are happening in the corridors of power in Dhaka, and these developments suggest that Yunus is under pressure to resign. Under whose pressure, we do not know. Is it the military? That is the army, the army that is exerting pressure on Yunus to resign, because it was the army chief who installed Yunus in office. It was the army chief who chose the government in August last year. But this issue about Yunus's future should not cloud other major developments that are happening in Bangladesh. These developments are pretty antithetical to India's core interests. For example, under Yunus, Bangladesh has agreed to a US-backed, quote-unquote, humanitarian corridor to Myanmar's Rakhine state. This is not a humanitarian corridor. This is an arms corridor to supply Western weapons to the rebels fighting the military regime in Myanmar. And some of these weapons that the West is supplying to Myanmar's rebels have already flowed into India's Manipur state. And then recently there was a Chinese delegation that visited in an airbase in Bangladesh.
Right.
That is from the British era. And now discussions have been underway to revive that airbase. That airbase is very close to India's border. And then there is this development about this $1 billion Teesta project. When Sheikh Hasina was in office, she decided to give that project to India, but the Yunus regime is seeking to give it to China now. Now, both this Teesta project and this defunct airbase that is sought to be revived both overlook India's chicken snake. And therefore, they hold major security implications for India.
Right.
So
And
there
I'm
is
seeing, as you're making these points, Dr. Brahmachalani, Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhary, who's an insider really in that sense, is nodding. And, I think it is in agreement. Let's bring him in. Mr. Chaudhary, thank you for joining us, first of all. Let me ask you this, straight off the bat. Will it be a coup or an election or something else in Bangladesh? What's happening there?
Into my understanding, that from sometime next week, because Fridays and Saturdays are our weekly holidays. From Sunday, things will be unfolding, military actions will be there, and Yunus will have to face the consequences because he has committed serious crimes against Bangladesh, against the sovereignty of this country, against Bangladesh armed forces and our army chief. I think, in my personal view, he would be arrested sometime next week, along with...
Right. Let me then ask you, Mr. Chaudhary, let me ask you, how significant is this rift between Yunus and the army chief, Waqaruzzaman?
You see, as I say, that Yunus has been conspiring against the sovereignty of Bangladesh. And that is where Bangladesh armed forces needs to react and take some military actions, because Bangladesh armed forces has to protect the sovereignty of this country. And for that reason, as I have mentioned, that when General Waqaruzzaman met Yunus on May 21st and notified him that, first of all, what he has been doing is already within the knowledge of Bangladesh armed forces, and asked him strongly to hold the election by 30th of December this year and hand over power to a new government on the 1st of January. This is what Yunus doesn't want. Yunus wants to remain in power eternally. So, of course, now I should say Yunus has become the biggest enemy of Bangladesh.
We don't know, because there are many reports that are suggesting, Mr. Chaudhary, that he could, well be jailed. RSN Singh, what is your reading of what's going on?
No, I just, overheard your previous debate when you went hammer and tongs on the Trump administration. But let me tell you, Pranesh, that ever since, Trump administration took office, Yunus, the exit of Mr. Muhammad Yunus was very much on the cards. One thing Trump is very clear about, and that is China-Pakistan economic corridor is no go. China-Bangladesh economic corridor is no go. China-Myanmar economic corridor is no go. At least that is his strategic thrust. Now, he was planted there by the deep state, of which Clinton and gang was very much a part. And then what happened? He disrupted, the democracy, a functional democracy. It was very, irrespective of the fact that, BNP was boycotting. Now what has happened? That BNP is back, and BNP is asking for elections. They were partners with the Jamaat-e-Islami, but they don't want to hand over office to Jamaat-e-Islami. So he has already proscribed Awami League, and BNP is against him, and the students that that Citizens Party, whatever it is, National Citizens Party, the student groups are fighting amongst themselves. And then here is a man, look, who tried a coup against his own army chief, and then Lal Monir Hat, he tries to please the Chinese.
Right.
Then with this, corridor which Brahmachalani Saab talked about, he's trying to please the Americans. This man has landed up Bangladesh nowhere, and I see something happening within 48 to 72 hours in Bangladesh.
Okay, that's the timeline. Sushant Sareen, will it be right to say that the Bangladesh army chief has found his next Yunus?
Look, we don't know whether the army will intervene or not. I think there's a lot of speculation going on, and I wouldn't be as brave as Colonel RSN Singh to predict something will happen in 48 hours. It could well. The Bangladesh army has been known to intervene, but I think the army is also quite divided. It is not the kind of monolithic army that might have been at one point of time. And in the last 15 years of Sheikh Hasina's rule, I think there have been significant divisions even within the army that have erupted. So will the army be confident enough to take over power and then, as the army chief himself is reported to have said, initiate elections within a couple of months till December so that things move forward? See, one thing is quite clear, and out here I completely agree with all my other colleagues. Yunus has proved to be a complete and utter disaster in Bangladesh. There is the feckless governance in that country has actually destroyed the success story which Sheikh Hasina had made Bangladesh into, in terms of the economy, in terms of social development indicators, in terms of the fact that she was keeping some kind of a rein on the Islamist jihadist forces in Bangladesh and was managing her foreign policy reasonably well. I think all of that has been put paid to by this clown who has got a Nobel Peace Prize and whose overweening ambition makes him want to stay on in power as long as he's alive. So I don't think you can have elections or any kind of a stability as long as this guy is there. And to that extent, whether the army intervenes or something else happens, we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay.
It's difficult to...
हर्षवर्धन जी, वहां जो हालात हैं और जिस तरह से खबरें आ रही हैं, उसको कैसे देखते हैं आप? म्यूट है आप हर्षवर्धन जी, म्यूट पे हैं आप।
बांग्लादेश में जो कुछ हुआ है उसकी टाइमलाइन थोड़ा ठीक से देखना चाहिए। बाकी सारी बातें जो जानकार लोग हैं, एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, वो बहुत अच्छे से बता रहे हैं। चौधरी साहब तो वहां बांग्लादेश में ही बैठे हुए हैं। जो डीप स्टेट, अमेरिका का डीप स्टेट जो बाइडेन के समय पूरे के पूरे तख्ता पलट को कराता है, सब कुछ करता है, जिसमें इंडिया और चाइना दोनों सरप्राइज हो जाते हैं। उनको नहीं समझ में आता है कि क्या हुआ। और ये बिना किसी संकोच के मैं कहूंगा कि भारत और चीन दोनों के लिए अबूझ पहेली बन गई। डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के आने के बाद डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का वो स्टेटमेंट याद करना चाहिए जिसमें उन्होंने कहा था कि बांग्लादेश को तो नरेंद्र मोदी देख लेंगे। अभी के सिनेरियो में ये बात करना, और जो आरएसएन सिंह जी ने कहा, ये बात करना थोड़ा सा कठिन हो रहा है, क्योंकि डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ट्रेड के मसले पर, पाकिस्तान के मसले पर, जिसके ऊपर रिवॉर्ड रखा उसी से हैंडशेक कर रहे हैं, तो अभी थोड़ा सा मुश्किल हो रहा है। लेकिन डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के रहते हुए मोहम्मद यूनुस को वो सपोर्ट नहीं मिल रहा है। मोहम्मद यूनुस जिस जमात के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, जिन रेडिकल फोर्सेज के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, वो रेडिकल फोर्सेज अब वहां पूरी तरह से, जिसको कहते हैं कि 100% पावर चाहती, वो कोई उसमें शेयरिंग नहीं चाहती। असली मसला ये है। और मुझे लगता है कि बांग्लादेश में एक बड़ा वर्ग है जो शेख हसीना के साथ है, जो वेट कर रहा है। स्थितियां बदलेंगी तो शायद आपको
ये शेख हसीना वाला सवाल मेरे जहन में था, मैं पूछना चाहता था चौधरी साहब से, लेकिन हमारे पास समय नहीं है। बट let's see, like Dr. Brahma Chalani said at the start, it's a tricky situation. New Delhi is watching closely. Let's see how that unfolds. I thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on India Upfront. The news are Friday Spotlight, viewers, coming up with Navita Kumar.